SpaceX is sending the Starship into orbit, NASA is launching its biggest rocket ever, and Blue Origin wants to sell you a letterbox in space. Space is the exciting place to be right now, but it's getting pretty busy up there. So let's break it down. Here's my list of the biggest launches and space events to watch in 2022. If you're watching this, then I know you're probably already a big space fan. But in case the past year kind of washed over you because of, well, everything going on out there, then here is a quick recap. NASA landed the Perseverance rover on Mars and launched the first ever space helicopter, Ingenuity. China successfully landed the Zhurong rover on Mars. OSIRIS-REx bumped into an asteroid to collect space dust. The Lucy space probe launched on its 12-year tour of 8 asteroids, and the DART mission launched on its asteroid-smashing planetary defense mission. Jeff Bezos flew to the edge of space for Blue Origin. Richard Branson did the same for Virgin Galactic. Elon Musk didn't fly to space, but SpaceX did launch its first mission crewed entirely by private citizens, as well as 2 commercial crew missions and almost 1,000 Starlink satellites. Phew. Okay, there's no doubt from all of that we're in a new space race. But what about the year ahead? Well, let's start with SpaceX, headed by Time Magazine 2021 Person of the Year and owner of this haircut, Elon Musk. SpaceX's Starship is one of the biggest space stories to watch in 2022. Quite literally, this massive heavy lift rocket is being billed as the future of space travel, capable of ferrying huge payloads into space and coming back to land on Earth to be used again. After plenty of test launches and crashes over the past few years, SpaceX is planning the first orbital flight for Starship in 2022. That's if the company doesn't go bankrupt first. In a leaked email published at the end of last year, Elon Musk said Starship engine production was a disaster, and SpaceX faced the quote, genuine risk of bankruptcy if we cannot achieve a Starship flight rate of at least once every 2 weeks in 2022. So the first orbital flight for Starship is going to be a huge test, and we still don't have a confirmed flight date. It could come as early as January or February, but SpaceX still needs to get clearance from the Federal Aviation Administration to fly. As for flying Starship 26 times this year, well, let's just say that sounds ambitious. But SpaceX isn't the only company doing some heavy lifting in the heavy lift rocket game. Blue Origin is working on a Starship competitor known as New Glenn, but its first launch has also been delayed. In February last year, the company said New Glenn wouldn't launch until the final quarter of 2022. Blue Origin blamed the delay on the fact that it missed out on a lucrative contract with the US Space Force. That contract went to SpaceX and United Launch Alliance. United Launch Alliance, well, that's the other big player in the commercial rocket game. It's a joint venture between Lockheed Martin and Boeing and the maker of the Atlas V and Delta family of rockets. You might recognize those names from some of NASA's launches. But ULA is also working on a next-gen heavy lift rocket called the Vulcan for taking military payloads into orbit. The original Vulcan launch was scheduled for this year, but you guessed it, delays. This time with the Vulcan's rocket engines, which are made by Blue Origin. Those issues mean it might not launch in 2022. And if all that wasn't enough, there's another plucky upstart on the scene, Rocket Lab, which is building the Neutron reusable rocket. Founded by New Zealander Peter Beck, the company has already started building prototypes using a process called automated fiber placement, which is similar to 3D printing. Rocket Lab says its first test fire of its rocket engines is due in 2022, so watch this space. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Let's head to low Earth orbit. 20 years after the first crewed mission to the ISS, the International Space Station is about to welcome its first entirely private mission of astronauts. The mission is being run by Axiom Space, with transport help from SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule set to launch in 2022. Fun fact, each of those astronauts paid a reported $55 million for their tickets. Oh, and while we're on the topic of Crew Dragon, Boeing's competitor, the Starliner, has faced a bunch of delays. But this year we're expecting to see a second uncrewed test of that commercial capsule. It's worth noting the ISS isn't the only space station making news. China is building a new space station in low Earth orbit. It's called Tiangong, which means Heavenly Palace, and it's actually the third station built by China. The first crashed to Earth in 2018, and the second was deliberately deorbited in 2019. But China has high hopes for the third Tiangong. It's already hosted its first group of taikonauts. That's taken from the Mandarin word for space. They hosted a science class which aired on Chinese state-owned media. Now, the core module of the station is set to be finished by the end of this year, with 2 more modules planned to house research and experiments. But it's not just governments claiming a stake in low Earth orbit. Blue Origin and Sierra Space have announced plans for a privately run space station known as Orbital Reef. They're billing it as a, quote, mixed-use business park in space, with transport and logistics, space habitation, and an onboard crew. They also say Orbital Reef will let anyone have their own address in space. Now, I love that these companies took literally the most exciting thing, space exploration, and paired it with the most boring phrase known to man, a mixed-use business park. Also, big question, how do I collect my mail from a space address? Either way, this one won't be finished in 2022. It's set to be up and running in the second half of this decade. But one to watch. If commercial space travel is one of the biggest space stories of 2022, then lunar exploration is the other big one. So let's talk moon landings. The big news here is NASA's Artemis mission, which is sending astronauts, including the first woman, back to the moon for the first time since the Apollo program. That's set to happen in 2025. Hopefully? The date was originally 2024, but NASA pushed that back last year. Still, we should see the first flight of NASA's massive space launch system this year, potentially as early as February. I had a chance to see the SLS in Florida late last year, and I have to say, it is very impressive up close. But it's not just NASA eyeing the moon. The whole world wants in. Korea is launching the Korea Pathfinder lunar orbiter around the moon. Russia is launching the Lunar 25 mission, its first mission to the moon since Lunar 24 in 1976. Japan is launching its Smart Lander for Investigating Moon, or SLIM, spacecraft. India is having another crack at lunar exploration with the Chandrayaan-3 mission. The first Chandrayaan orbiter was critical to discovering water on the moon, but the second mission crash-landed in 2019. Now, I've lost count here, but launch windows for all of these missions open in 2022. Plus, we'll still have space tourism. After 3 crewed flights to the edge of space last year, Blue Origin says it has several more planned this year. Virgin Galactic should be in the mix there too, though it is delaying flights until the end of 2022 so it can refurbish its spacecraft following Richard Branson's Joyride last year. And then, of course, there's all the science missions that we're expecting this year. In August, NASA is launching the Psyche mission to go and investigate a metal asteroid between Mars and Jupiter. In late September, the DART mission is going to crash into its asteroid near Earth to see if it can knock it slightly out of its orbit. And of course, my favourite weather satellite, the GOES-T, is launching into geostationary orbit. It's all happening, people. Oh, and of course, don't forget, we're getting our very first images down from NASA's most powerful telescope ever, the James Webb Space Telescope. Fingers crossed. So if you're a big space nerd, and aren't we all, then we've got you covered. CNET will be across all these big events. We'll be here with live streams of those late night rocket launches, explainers on the big exciting missions, and all of the coverage you need to make sense of the developments happening in space and here on Earth. We have got a very big year ahead. In the words of the 90s Danish pop classic Barbie Girl, we're just getting started. As for you, leave me a comment to tell me which mission you're most excited about, and if you want more space stories, then check out my visit to Lockheed Martin to see the GOES-T weather satellite launching this year, and also check out my explainer on the James Webb Space Telescope. Now that is a mission to watch.